28th of February, Rabbi Furst, Mishna Berura.
Okay, good morning again, Lou. How are you today?
Good morning again, Rabbi.
Okay, fine. Okay. Good morning again. This is Rabbi Furst here with Samanavshi here in Shemaim. Here in Zoom, we're learning our second shir. We're learning Hilchos Megilla and Berura, Siman Tuf Reish Pei Tet. And we're going to begin with Sif Gimel.
Taf Reish Pei Chet, Sif Gimel.
Tet. Tuf Reish Pei Tet.
Oh, Tet. Okay, that makes more sense. Gimel. Okay, so it's androgynous.
Androgynous, right?
Okay, androgynous.
Yeah, androgynous.
Androgynous. Motzi Mino. Below She'eno Mino. So it's androgynous is a person that has both male and female signs.
Right, correct.
He goes out from his type.
Is motzi, meaning, and one androgynous can, in the Kriyas Megilla, can be motzi, can fulfill the obligation with his reading for someone else of his type, another androgynous. So one androgynous can read the Megillah for another androgynous.
Got it. Below she'eno mino, but not for one that's not his type.
Right. You also, Mary and Barry, you see where we are. We're in the Mishna Berura.
Yeah. You're up to Yud Beis.
We're in
Tumtum.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Tumtum, in the Mechaber, exactly.
Tumtum umi shechetz o eved afilu mino eno motzi. So a tumtum, I think if I remember right, a tumtum is one that has no signs.
Right, the genitals are not visible. They're covered over by layers of skin. So it's not visible as to what they actually are.
Okay. And a tumtum and one shechetz o eved, that he's a slave.
He's a half Evid. We'll discuss how that happens. He's a half an Evid.
And one who's a half of an eved, even his own type, he cannot fulfill the obligation for the other person.
Right. So neither a tumtum or chetzi Evid.
Okay. Should I do the Haggah?
Yes. Okay.
Yesh omrim da'afilu es atzmo eno motzi v'tzarich lishmoa me'acherim. There are those who say that even himself, he cannot fulfill his own obligation. And he needs to hear from somebody else. So is he talking about the tumtum and the half slave, or is he talking about the androgynous?
I believe he's only referring to the tumtum and the chetzi Evid.
Interesting. So he can't even fulfill for himself.
Right, according to those opinions, right? Not according to the first opinion, but according to the second opinion, he must hear it from somebody else. Okay, we'll see a little bit of explanation in the Mishna Berura. Let's begin with Tet in the Mishna Berura on androgynous.
Androgynos. Yesh lo zach rus v'nak vus. There is to him the male and the female.
Right.
So he's just clarifying what it means.
Exactly.
Motzi mino. He can fulfill for his own type. De'im zeh zachar gam zeh zachar. That if this one is male, then also this one is male. De'im zo nekeva gam zo nekeva. And if this one is female, then this one is female. Ve'im nis bor de hu beria bifnei atzmo. And if, what is nis bor?
If it's going to be clarified.
Clarify that he is created before himself.
No, I'll say 1 second. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Ve'im nisbor hu bria bifnei atzmo. That if it's considered, that he's this androgynous is a bria bifnei atzmo. I mean, it's not a male, it's not a female. It's a combination, right? Then it's
I see. It's a different speech.
A third type.
Right.
Your original transgender.
Okay, so in other words, if you want to say it's a male, then they're both males. If you want to say it's a female, then they're both females.
Right.
But if you want to consider it to be that he is a completely separate type, Gam Hasheni Beria Bifnei Atzmohu. Then also the other one, the second one, is of that same type, that same third type.
Right.
Velo she'eno mino. And he's not of that type.
Right.
Deshema ze nekeva v'hasheni hu zachar. That maybe this one is female and that one is and the second one is a male.
Right.
And therefore you can't say that he can be Yotze the other one.
You're right.
Va'afilu liman de amar de shenim de nashim motzios ha-nashim, and even for the one who says that that women can fulfill for women, ze gaza tefei. This is a beautiful fence.
And
I'll say gara, not gaza, gara.
you're
I don't know what gara is.
So, okay, you like this. We could say, I mean, he can't fulfill the obligation for someone who's not his type. The Shwai Shem is in the keva. This one might be in the keva. Sheni, the second one, the other one might be a zachar. And even according to the Mandoma, the Nashim Motziim and Nashim, even if you will want to suggest that we can allow it because there is an opinion that the women can fulfill the obligation for men. This is much worse. This is a case that's much worse than a regular woman fulfilling the obligation for a regular man. Why is it worse? You continue. You continue if you want. Lou.
In the subject of fulfilling for others, nikar, that it is apparent im hu ish o isha. It's apparent if he's a woman or a man.
Right. I mean, it must be recognizable that the one who's reading is a man or a woman. And here you don't know. So
Right.
so it's much worse than if it's a regular woman doing it for a man. But here, because it's not known as to whether this is a real woman or a real man.
So even according to the one who says a man can do it for a woman and a woman can do it for a man, that still not necessarily say that an androgynous can do it for another androgynous.
Right, because it's worse over here, as the Mishna explained, that there's a requirement that you need to know who is a male reading or a female reading, and here you don't know if it's male or female.
Tumtum v'kule, a tumtum, etc. Afilu mino eno motzi. Even his own type he cannot fulfill. De shema ze zachar v'ze nekeva. That maybe this one is male and this one is female. Should I read the parentheses?
Yes, go ahead.
Ma she'ein kain androgynos kulan shavin b'minyan. How is it that I'm sorry, ma she'ein kain is a phrase.
Mashenkin is in contrast to.
In contrast to the androgynos, all of them are equal in a minion.
The minion in their type, meaning they're all considered to be equal types, meaning because in androgynous it might be a third type, right? So therefore they're all considered a third type. But here it's either a man, the tumtum is either a man or a woman, you just can't determine as to whether they actually are a full-fledged man or a full-fledged woman. But androgynous, since they have both visible, the organs are both visible for both of them, so therefore they're according to that opinion that they consider to be a third type, therefore they're all third types. So therefore that's easier, according to that opinion, that an androgynous can fulfill the obligation for another androgynous.
V'chein mi shechetzo eved, and similarly for the one who is a half slave, lo asay tzad avdus didei umapik laha acher sheyesh bo tzad cherus. So for the half slave, it doesn't come from the side of slavery. What is mapik?
Okay, so first of all, let me just explain how do you get a half slave, or how does a person become a half a slave? Let's say a person.
He has two owners, no?
Yeah. Let's say you and Barry, you and I, we buy Fritz, right? We buy Fritz on the slave market,
Right.
and then I get up and I free Fritz. Okay, so Fritz is a half free man and a half slave to you, right? So that's how you get a half a half slave, a half free man. Right.
Okay. So what is this mapik?
So it says here that when you're dealing with an Evid, right? So the Tzad Chetzi Avdus, Komish Chetzav Evid. Plus, he said, anyone who's a half a slave, his half part, which is a slave, umapik le'acher yeshbot tzad cheres. It goes out to the other one who has a tzad cheres, meaning there's a lack of conformity here. Okay, mishri ketzav evod lo asi tzad avdos today umapik le'acher yeshbot tzad cheres. Since you have two half slaves, right? You have two half slaves. So the only one that can really be reading the Megillah is the free the non-slave. So you have two people with non-slave components to themselves. So the non-slave component of one cannot go ahead and fulfill the obligation for the non-slave portion of the other person. Because you always have the other half, which is not able to do it.
I have a question. If this half slave that got freed by Chaim and Yosef, right? Chaim freed this his half.
Right.
So is it possible that this half of the free part of the slave could read for his former master? Because that part's free and he's reading for a free person.
Right, but he's only half free. You're only going to have half a reading over here. That's the problem here. Since you have half of him still a slave, right? You need a whole person to do the reading, not a half person.
Mm-hmm. Even though he's reading for the person who freed him, that part's free.
Right, but it's not enough. You need a whole part. You need a whole, not a half.
By the way, I just to fill that part in, this half slave, who can he marry?
According to he can't marry. According to the Gemara, he can't marry anybody. Can't marry a shifcha. Why? He can't marry a slave woman because he's half a free man. A free man can't really be a slave woman, and he can't marry a Jewish person because a Jewish person can't marry a slave. So therefore, there was a machlokas in the Mishna, Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. So
and he also can't marry a heifer. Uh-huh.
No. So finally, Beis Hillel was agreement with Beis Shammai that you should force the master to free him. The master that did not free him originally should be forced to free him, and therefore become a full-fledged Jew. Because he's stuck. He can't marry anybody. Can't marry a goy. Can't marry a slave woman. Can't marry a Jew. He's stuck from all sides. Call it kivimum. Okay, let's see. Where are we? We just finished.
Eshomrim.
Yes, go ahead.
Yud Gimel.
There are those who say dafilu es atzmo, that even himself, kule, etc. Even himself, he cannot fulfill the obligation. Ze lo koye tumtum.
Right. This is not going on the Tumtum, right?
This does not apply to the Tumtum.
That was the question we asked. We asked whether those that say that they can't do it, is this referring to all the three cases mentioned, meaning androgynous, Tumtum, and Achetzi Evid, right? So here the Mishna was saying this is not referring back to the Tumtum.
Right. Rak Achetzo Evid, only the half slave, the Chetzo ben Chorin, and the half that is free. Only the one who's half and half slave, half free.
Right.
Umishum delo asay tzad avdus And because he doesn't, we do not, ase is to come.
We don't cause it to happen.
We don't cause it to happen from the perspective of the free one, the free half, dine umapik. That's the same phrase we had before. We said that means to go out.
Right, meaning to mapik also means it like to be, when the Mishna says, the Mechaber says yotzi, he's fulfilling he's exempting his obligations, going out from his obligations. Mapik tzadkeres, he can't exempt the or fulfill the obligation for the half of his cheres.
And what is D-Day?
His own component of cheres.
Okay, so from the perspective of the free half, his own cannot fulfill the perspective of the free himself. I'm not following the redundancy here.
It says again, it's okay. It's not, first of all, it didn't go on Tumtum. It's only going on that of the half Evid and half free men. And why? Why does this opinion say, right, that they can't, even a Chetzi ben Evid, a Chetzi ben Chorin can't even fulfill it for himself? They have to specifically hear it from other people, but not a half at all. Half doesn't work at all. Obviously, that it can't be that the half of the side of him, which is a slave, can ever exempt the side that's a free man. It never works. They call it okay. There's only specifically, according to that opinion, that they are say that women are not similar and they can't motzi men. And in case here is that Evid is motzi a isha. Evid is similar to an isha. So therefore, there's no possibility of an Evid, a half Evid, fulfilling the obligation for another half Evid, or even for himself. He can't do it. You have to completely listen to somebody else who's a full kosher Jew. Okay, the next test vav, let's say. Okay, that's going to bring us to next. Okay, it's a good time to stop. We came to a point where we're actually over time, right? Okay, so good. So Mitzvah Shem will continue tomorrow. And in the meantime, everyone should have a good afternoon.
Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
Have a
Thank
good
you.
afternoon, everyone.